Hello students and family members, this is Mr. Panza. Today we're going to be talking about capacity, measuring liquid. Specifically, we're going to talk about the U.S. customary system that we use here in the United States for measuring the amount of liquid that can fit inside of objects. Customary capacity is what it's talked about. There are four main units of customary capacity here in the U.S. Gallon, which is the largest. Quart, which is just beneath that. Pints, which fits inside of the quarts. And the smallest, cups. So let's use these four and talk a little bit more in detail about each. First, let's talk about the gallons, or as I mentioned, the largest amount when it comes to capacity. Gallons are used to measure large amounts. So as we continue here, I want you to remember that gallon spells out giant when I think about the G. Things like the amount of water that can fit into a bathtub would be measured in gallons. Things that can fit into large containers of jugs or a swimming pool would be measured in gallons because it's the largest amount in the customary system. The next one would be quarts. Quarts would be smaller bottles of milk. Because here's a quart of milk, it's letting us know that it's the next one down. Pints. Pints would be things like jars of jam or mason and jelly jars are typically 1 pint. When we get to cups, we're talking really small. A cup of coffee, which is 8 ounces, cup of milkshake, or even like a cup of milk that would go with your cookies. It's the smallest unit in the United States customary system when it comes to capacity. Those are your 4 units. Conversions, well, all you have to remember is the big G. I like to think of it as a big game because that big G is going to be the overall game, which you can divide into 4 quarters. Here's what it'll look like. The first thing you're going to draw is a G that looks like this, that represents the game, or in this case, the gallon. Each game, typically say football or basketball, can be divided up into 4 quarts or 4 quarters. Same thing here. My big G represents the gallon, which can be divided into 1 quart, 2 quarts, 3 quarts, and 4 quarts. As long as you can remember that the big G or gallon has 4 quarts in it, you're in good shape. Because after that, all you have to remember is that you go pee-pee at CC's. Yes, I'm sorry to be that way, but at the same time, it's very helpful when I try to remember how many pints and cups are inside of a quart. Here's how I remember. I've got the 2 cups, which fit inside 1 pint. Then put 2 C's in each of the quarts, or 2 C's inside each of the pints, and 2 pints inside each of the quarts. So every quart gets 2 P's, and every pint gets 2 C's. So the quarts fit inside the gallon, the P's fit inside the quarts, and the C's fit inside the P's. So I have a big G for gallon, 4 quarts within that gallon, and I go PP at CC's inside each quart. Now you may be thinking, how could this help me? I'm going to show you an example. For example, if we had a question, which is more, 3 quarts or 4 pints? Well, in this case, I have a picture of 4 pints because I've got my 2 quarts. So which is more, 3 quarts or 4 pints? In this case, the answer would be what? The answer would be that if I had 4 pints and I was trying to figure out if 3 quarts was more than that, I would have to say that absolutely 3 quarts would be more than 4 pints. Even though 4 is greater than 3, when I have 3 quarts, I actually have 6 pints, which is greater than 4 pints. So if I would have looked at that in the big G, it would have been more visible to me and I would have been able to answer the question. When I look at the big G, I see that 4 pints is the equal to 2 quarts, which shows me that 3 quarts is more than 4 quarts. Here's a little bit more of a difficult question, and I'm going to show you how you can use the big G to answer it. Mr. Panza went to the store to buy 6 quarts of milk. They were out of quarts at the store, so we had to get pints instead. How many pints did he need to buy in order to bring home the same exact amount of 6 quarts? So instead of quarts, I need to bring home pints. Let's look at the big G. If I needed 6 quarts, well, I know that in 1 gallon there are 4 quarts, and I need 2 more quarts on top of that, which would then equal how many pints? Well, in this case, in 1 full gallon, I have 2, 4, 6, 8 pints. Plus, I would need 2 more quarts because I'm looking for 6 quarts. That would get me 4 more pints. So 8 plus 4 more would get me 12 pints. And if you didn't see it, you could always draw another G. Let's check out my answer and see if I'm correct. Would it be 12 pints? When I check my answer, I can see that I'm correct because 6 quarts is equivalent or equal to 12 pints. I would need 12 pints to get the same amount. So, when we're thinking about the United States customary system when it comes to capacity, we need to consider these 4 units and the big G. Gallons is the giant one. Quarts fit inside of gallons like 4 quarters inside a full basketball game. Pints and cups are my smallest. Go pee-pee at CC's. And my big G looks like this. Hope this picture helps and the video was helpful as well.